Sociocracy is culture change, and in its essence, all tools are integrated to get you two things. One is that nobody can be ignored. The other is that we want to do things well and improve over time. Sociocracy is less hierarchical than your typical organization, but it is also more structured than many peer organizations. Small teams have authority to do things. We call them circles. Circles are well defined. They have a description of what they do, the aim, and they have all the power in that area, their domain. Also, we have clarity. Who's in that circle? That means we have defined membership. So, in our organization, it is not a central committee that makes all the decisions and tells everybody what to do. Instead, it is more like a set of cells, each doing their own thing. They can divide and form subcircles, and they don't need anybody else's permission for that. These circles now have to communicate with each other, and here's how we do it. Whenever we have two related circles, two people are part of both circles. Each circle will have their own members, but the two people who are links will be there when the one circle meets and also when the other circle meets. Those two links are not only visitors, they are decision makers in both circles. They make sure that no circle can decide over the other, and information can flow evenly throughout the whole organization. How can we make sure the whole organization is aligned and connected? We do that by having one coordinating circle. That circle consists of two members from each department circle. The top-down link we call the leader of the department circle, and the bottom-up link we call the delegate. The general circle supports the circles in doing their work and makes sure all the parts fit together. Instead of centralizing decisions in the general circle, we try to pass on decisions into the department circles. When it's unclear who is in charge of a topic, the general circle assigns the decision to a circle. Now we have semi-autonomous circles that are empowered to carry out their aim and make the decisions needed along the way, and we have a way of connecting them so that work is coordinated. There's only one thing missing. The general circle is typically busy with everyday stuff, but for a sustainable organization, we also need somebody who looks ahead. The mission circle members, or board, are not the overall leaders. They are more like the lookout on a ship. They help stay in touch with the mission of the organization, so we don't forget the big picture of what we are doing as an organization. The general circle, on the other hand, is more like a management team, focusing on the aims, the everyday work. So who is on this mission circle or board, and how is it connected to the rest? The two circles are, as usual, double linked. The delegate of the general circle reports from the general circle to the mission circle, and the other way. The leader of the general circle reports from the mission circle to the general circle. Overall, we are aiming for alignment and flow of information between circles so that we don't lose track of our mission, and our mission can guide our everyday work. But how about the other people on the mission circle or board? Where did they come from? The idea is that the mission circle or board members bring outside perspectives, inspiration, and expertise into the mission circle. They can come from the outside or from within the organization, holding a certain perspective that they bring to the table as stakeholders who care about the organization. Overall, the organizational structure is very flexible. It can be tailored to specific needs because every circle can form as many subcircles as they want. It can also change over time. Every circle, in every position of the circle structure, will have an internal structure of roles. Here are the 4 basic roles. The secretary takes the minutes and makes sure all the documents of the circle are maintained and can be found. One circle member will be the facilitator. That's the role that makes sure that everybody can be heard in meetings and that the circle meetings are clear and productive. Each circle will also select a delegate that carries the voice of the circle into the parent circle and from there into the entire organization. The circle leader or coordinator oversees the operations and makes sure everything gets done. Both the leader and the delegate, as you know, are part of the parent circle. As you can see here, not everybody has a circle role in that circle. We often compare roles to hats that we wear in a circle. And besides the circle roles, like leader, facilitator, delegate, and secretary, there are also operational roles. Those roles can be defined by the circle as needed to bundle some tasks into a role so one person can take care of them. You can see an example here. The role is defined, and then different people can fill that role, depending on what the circle decides, and one person can have several roles. Let's review and summarize what we've heard so far. Instead of one central source of power, we have distributed authority, and that makes it really important that you know who decides what. It is also important to be transparent and to have good flow of information so all the different efforts and circles and actions can be aligned and create synergy. One key feature of sociocracy are rounds. You can see here what a round is. It's that one person speaks after another. It's a simple way to make sure that everyone is heard, to practice inclusion in every moment. Rounds done well help create group magic, because when we speak one by one, we also listen better. Our meeting format supports equivalence and effectiveness too. We start every meeting with a check-in. That means we enter the meeting as human beings with our contexts, our stories, and whatever affects us in the moment. At the end of every meeting, we do an evaluation round where we hear how the meeting went for everyone and what we can learn to make the next meeting better. Both check-in and meeting evaluation happen in rounds because everybody's voice matters. During the admin phase, the facilitator will make sure that the circle, as such, is ready to work. We consent to the agenda of the meeting. And of course, there are the agenda items. Depending on what is needed, you will either report, or you will explore together, or you will make a decision together. So what is consent? It's a way to make a decision without voting, and also it's a bit different from consensus. Let's look at an example. So this is Eddie, and Eddie loves hanging out at the beach. He loves playing beach ball. He loves snorkeling, swimming. You get the idea. If he makes vacation plans, those are his first choices. Meet Frank. Frank is in Eddie's life, and they plan to go on a trip to relax. Eddie, of course, proposes going to the beach. Frank has a different idea. He wants to go to a museum. There's nothing wrong with proposing what we want, but the aim was to relax on the trip, and they don't seem to find a way to meet that need for both of them. So let's look at that. We all have our internal list of things that we prefer. With just one modification, we can improve our decision-making. We all have a preference, and for Eddie, that's the beach. But that's not all. There are also the things that we're okay with. They are not our first choice, but they work for us and don't interfere with what we are trying to do. In this case, to go on a relaxing trip together. We call this the range of tolerance. Some things are outside of our range of tolerance. For example, for Eddie, A shopping trip would be a deal breaker. It is not something he'd find relaxing for a trip. So if the aim is to plan a relaxing trip, shopping is not going to work for him. It's outside his range of tolerance. So how does that work with more than one person? Here is Frank again, and he has his own preferences, his own range of tolerance, and things he objects to. If Frank had his personal preference, he would hang out in museums all the time. Hiking works for him, but shopping and the beach don't work at all. So when Eddie suggests the beach, it's a deal breaker. Hiking sounds good to both of them, given that they do want to go on this trip. Museums are an option. Thinking about the range of tolerance instead of just thinking about what we want or prefer gives us many more options, more forward motion and connection. What does that mean for consent? Consent contains the personal preference and the range of tolerance. We will consent to anything in that area. What we object to is what we cannot work with. Objecting to a proposal is more specific than just not liking it. You might remember that every circle has an aim, a description of what they do. An objection means that you are concerned that the circle cannot achieve its aim if you carry out the proposal. All major decisions are made by consent. The process for that is always the same. First, we make sure that everyone knows what we're talking about. The group will gather questions in a round and then make sure to answer them. Then we will explore ideas. And again, we do that in a round so everybody can be heard. And lastly, we do a consent round where we ask everybody, do you consent? A decision is made when all objections have been integrated into the proposal and there is no more unresolved objection. We don't need to give everyone their personal preference, but we do have to address all the objections. So remember, we talked about circles, and we've already talked about roles. Roles live in a circle, as you can see here. When we have a role, how do we know who is going to fill that role? This is where we use the selection process. Before we can do a selection, we have to know what the role description is, what authority and tasks the role consists of. Let's assume we want to fill the role of the secretary of a circle. The circle collaboratively gathers a list of qualifications that they would like to see in a secretary. Often, that's done in rounds. When there is consent on the list of qualifications, we think, who could fill that role? That's when the nomination process begins. In a round, each member of the circle will nominate one person. They nominate on the basis of qualifications. In this group, one person nominated herself. The others nominated other circle members. With your nomination, share the reason for that nomination so others can learn from your thinking and you can learn from theirs. Now, the circle does a second round. They share their nomination now, given what they've heard from other people, new information, new opinions. Again, they share the reasons for why they changed their minds or didn't change their minds. For the next step, it's not all that important who got nominated how many times. It's not counting or voting. What is more important are the reasons that were shared in relationship to the qualifications that the circle named earlier. Based on what they heard, the facilitator will now make a proposal and propose a candidate for a certain term in the role. There will then be a consent round on that proposal. We prefer having the person who was nominated go last. Objections are raised when someone is concerned about a person in the role and achieving the circle's aim. The group now made a decision together and the role is filled. You can use this process for other decisions. For example, what venue to use for an event. What is special about this process is that we talk about each other in the presence of each other, which is unusual for many groups. And yet, that's one of the big learnings in sociocracy or dynamic governance. We have to talk more with each other, about our work, and about how we run things. Feedback is important. Think about it. If there's something that makes working together hard for you and you never bring it up, then it would just always stay the same. Of course, there are no guarantees that something changes if you bring it up, but what's pretty certain is that not much changes if nobody brings it up. So, more feedback, more information will always be better than less feedback. And that's why gathering feedback is built into everything we do in dynamic governance or sociocracy. Everything starts with an idea, with a plan. We carry out our plan. While doing that, or after we're done, we evaluate what happened. And then we can go back and see whether we can adjust the plan. So now that we have more information, better ideas, more ideas, we can carry that out. Now we have more that we can test, and the whole thing starts over again. Better plan, new plan. So if we have a good amount of information, we will have a lot of things that we can test, and our overall work will just be better and better over time. While this is true for doing our work, it is also true for interpersonal feedback. You have an idea of how you want to be a team. Then you carry it out, and then you tell each other about what it was like to work together. And now you have more care and consideration in whatever you do, and you do it again. Not only is your work getting better, but also the care for each other, that consideration, that only happens if we talk to each other and share how things are working for us. Every organization has a lot of potential there. If we talk to each other in a way that does not create positive change, then it's no good. We need to be able to talk to each other in a way that fosters connection. If you talk in a way that's not emotionally safe, if you blame people, if you use power structures to talk down on somebody, chances are it will not be heard. So that might help discharge energy, but it's not creating any positive change. What does create change is connection, understanding each other, listening to each other, being on eye level. That is what actually creates the positive loop that we are showing. It's not about performing and putting on a show for each other. It's also not about ranting. A circle meeting is not a self-help group. Your feelings are yours, and you take responsibility for them. We don't want to fall into factions. It's about strengthening the individuals while strengthening the group. It's not about putting one group over the other group. It's about leadership in service of the group. The essence of sociocracy, or dynamic governance, is looking for the win-win so that nobody's needs are ignored. And it's about having a shared aim. We can improve the world in many different places and create a movement that is strong enough to better meet the needs of all the people.